So many people have lost their channels and they can't get it back.
Copyright law, fair use, online defamation, harassment. What are the legal things that creators need to know?
Like saying, ew, gross, that's not transforming a video. Really transforming a video is something different. Whoever's content you're using, they can come and claim it and strike you.
What is fair use and how do you do it the right way?
You know, when I tell clients who are creators who want to use clips, I say,
what are some of the most common legal mistakes creators make?
I mean, there's so many things, we can talk about. Those are things that they can put contracts in place to protect you.
Today, we've got Tyler Chou, who's the creator's attorney, formerly a Hollywood attorney, and her YouTube channel is crushing it. You got to check it out with lots of insights into these legal issues. But besides all of her expertise in these legal areas, she also helps creators charge 3 to 6x more for brand deals, productize, and really scale their creator businesses. So if you're brand new or you're more advanced, I think this conversation is going to be incredibly juicy. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Sean, thank you so much for having me. I am so honored. I mean, I've watched so many of your videos when I was starting my YouTube channel. So this is sort of a dream come true for me.
Well, I appreciate your kind words. And thank you for adding so much value today. We actually surveyed our audience on both channels, Think Media and Think Media Podcast, and also got some questions. And so I'm excited to have this conversation. But let's just kick it off. What are some of the most common legal mistakes creators make? Some of just kind of the lowest hanging fruit things people need to know that could help them be a little bit safer.
Well, you hinted at it. I mean, creators should really think of themselves as a business. Do you have an LLC? Do you have trademarks? Do you have general liability insurance? If you have editors, even if they're independent contractors, do you have them under contract? Because if you don't have something that says, everything you create for me is owned by me, the results and proceeds are owned by me. If you have a falling out with that editor and they leave with your content, they could say, oh no, but that's mine. Or I learned some editing style, like some secret, thing that you do, and they take it with them. If you don't have a piece of paper that says that they can't take that with them, then it's just a world of hurt, in terms of who owns it. I've had clients who have this happen to them where editors leave and they say, oh no, or they try to claim ownership of the channel by saying, oh no, but I made you. I edited from day one. And so those are things that I can put bumpers around. You hire an attorney, they can put contracts in place to protect you. So those are sort of kind of like the low hanging fruit. I mean, there's so many things, we can talk about defamation insurance. Like if you have any kind of reaction channel, or you even give reviews, right? Like even if you're reviewing products, you could potentially get sued for defamation if you hurt, we've seen this, right? Like I don't want to name who they are, but they give reviews and it totally tanks a huge product. And then you're like, wow, you just killed millions of dollars for us. Now what? Do they go after that creator? They could, maybe, if it's not truthful.
So let's unpack some of this. Let's go with the LLC thing first.
Okay.
What would your advice be if a creator's further along? They might be it's overdue. Like they've got some editors for them. They don't have the right contracts with those editors. They're just operating off of no entity, just their social security number if they're in the US. So they have like no protection. Like for sure they need to probably set up an LLC. But let's talk about like a brand new creator or a small creator. They're going to be editing themselves. They're doing it as a hobby. They're hustling and just kind of like trying to get monetized, or they're at a stage where a few $100 are coming in a month from ad revenue, a few $100 a month are coming in from affiliates. Like, what's that stage that you recommend someone start an LLC and think that way if it's still kind of a hobby and it hasn't crossed that threshold? Or do you think for protection, it's almost a day one thing they would need?
Well, this is how I usually calculate it. I will ask, right? Even a young creator, do you own a house? Do you have a 401k? Like, do you, currently work and you own assets, right? If you own assets, then you should think about it from day one. Now, if you're a young person, and you don't own anything and you're really only making a couple $100s, I really think the kind of threshold is like $2,000, because I think to do an LLC, it costs maybe $500 to $1,000. If you do it properly with an attorney, you could do it yourself. By the way, you could file it for a couple $100s by yourself if you're wanting to just go on. I'm in California, California Secretary of State. You could just do it. The one other thing that I forgot to mention that's tied to the LLC is you need to pay taxes. I'm really, really worried about so many creators out there who are making a ton of money. They're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I get to keep all this cash. You don't get to keep that. That's just delayed and sometimes delayed with penalty. So that is also another thing that I really recommend is having a good CPA. And that's a big request. The biggest requests I get right now are referrals to CPAs and insurance brokers for media insurance, because of what's happening with CoffeeZilla right now, getting sued by Logan Paul and his defamation, his errors omissions, which is also called media insurance. He went and bought it a few years ago, thought he had defamation coverage because that's literally what he does, right? He needs that coverage because he's always talking about other people and bad actors. He got sued. He tendered it to his insurance company and they said, oh, but you don't have defamation coverage. His broker completely failed him because he didn't get him the proper insurance. So I think, does that answer your question? I mean, the LLC is like, if you're making some money, because here's the reason for an LLC. It's to protect your assets, right? So if you get sued and you have an LLC, it only touches the assets that are in the LLC, which is usually not very much, right? It's maybe some cash flow. Sometimes it's a few $1,000s. But if you own a home or you have a 401k or maybe your parents left you, real estate, those all can be touched in a lawsuit. If someone sues you, they're going to come after those assets. And so do you want it kind of protected behind this veil that the LLC provides for you?
So let's unpack a couple things deeper. So I love the LLC advice. If you're sitting on assets, you definitely need it. Or if you get to around $2,000 a month, sure, give or take, definitely get some professionalization to your creator business, your online business, get an LLC set up. And then you might want to consider insurance. You mentioned the CoffeeZilla story. Maybe take a few steps back to just frame the context of what happened and how you're pulling principles out of that we can learn from in regards to protecting ourselves with insurance, defamation, things like that.
Sure. So a couple years ago, Logan Paul launched this product called CryptoZoo. And it was supposed to be like sort of a game that you could play and you could hatch eggs and the eggs would give you money. And it sounded really cool. But as more and more time went by, it's just never launched. So millions of people lost millions of dollars, right? Giving him money. And it's a volume proposition. Probably each person was like 500 or 1,000. And it's just ballooned into this huge amount. CoffeeZilla, is an investigative YouTuber, and he does these kind of very big, very in-depth investigations that take months. He interviews everybody. He's very thorough. He's very, very precise because he doesn't want to say something that's not true, because truth is a defense in defamation. So Logan Paul even came out and said, oh, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. I'm definitely going to refund people. I'm still going to launch the game. It's a year and a half, almost 2 years later, the game is still not launched. So CoffeeZilla, I think he left it alone. And then Logan Paul filed a complaint. And this is what he did. He filed in federal court, which does not allow for anti-slap motions. So anti-slap motions say that, public figures, if they get sued, right? They have less protection, right? Because they're a public figure. They don't have the same rights of privacy that, like our family members, right? Like my husband would have much more right to privacy than I would, right? Because I'm on camera, I speak out of different places. But a really famous person has less protection. So anti-slap motions were basically put into place so that people, their freedom of speech would be protected, that they could bring things against famous people and not worry about getting in trouble. Anyway, if he had filed in state law, CoffeeZilla could have filed an anti-slap motion and said, I have my freedom of speech. I can say these things about you that are true, right? They're not untrue. And he could have gotten the case dismissed. But because it's in federal courts don't have anti-slap motion. And Logan Paul has very deep pockets. As we know, Prime has done very well. I mean, it's gone up and down, right? It's maybe not so well now, but it'll probably do better now that they launched Lunchly. But I think, and so CoffeeZilla went to his insurance and said, okay, I have this defamation claim. Protect me. Pay for my attorneys. And they're like, no. You don't have defamation coverage. So now CoffeeZilla is going to have to probably pay 6 to 7 figures in legal fees because it's very expensive to defend yourself. It's very cheap to file a complaint in the US, and that's the beauty and nightmare of living here. You can sue and be sued by anybody. And so I think this is a cautionary tale as to why you should have media insurance. Make sure that it covers defamation. I mean, I actually am, I have advised 2 clients this week talking to them about defamation because they are big channels and they do reaction videos. And reaction videos are really interesting because people think, well, it's fine, right? But it's really not fine. I mean, YouTube will allow copyright strikes if you use someone else's video, and YouTube just doesn't get involved. They have you figure it out, right? So I could put it, anybody could put a copyright strike on you, and then you have to go figure out what to do with that person that put the strike so that you can get it removed. I mean, we're getting off topic, but so that's kind of why every reaction channel or people who do reviews should have media insurance.
This is especially relevant if you're talking about other people, which is a huge niche. Reaction videos, people reacting or talking about celebrities or in all kinds of different niches. And one of the things that maybe they pick up on the street is like, well, if I say allegedly, then I'm all good. Is it enough to just say allegedly? And sometimes they're like, they'll put it on visual on the screen, Dogpack 404 talking about Mr. Beast, of course is going to throw in allegedly. Is allegedly enough?
I don't know about enough, but it helps. I say allegedly a lot as an attorney, until it's been proven in a court of law and by a jury or judge, like you can't really say this person is X, Y, and Z. You can always say it's my opinion, right? That also helps. But I always tell my clients, try to stay with the truth. If you really stay with the truth, then if you do end up getting sued or go to court, then that's your protection, right? This applies to fair use, right? People just slap fair use on videos thinking, oh, I can use this person's video because I put fair use on it. But actually, fair use is a defense in litigation. Like when you get sued, you can try to explain it, but fair use is very complicated. There are so many elements to it. It usually has to be educational. It can be a satire. It really you can't make money from it, which is a hard case for most YouTubers because their videos typically, if they're monetized, makes them money. And so that's a hard defense to have, right? Unless, and I think maybe that's why Dogpack allegedly states that his videos are not monetized, right? Like he's turned off monetization. But I know there are tools out there that can check, but maybe that's why he turned off monetization as well, because he wants to use that as a defense.
Well, I know that this conversation can evolve. I do want to talk about copyright and fair use more, but if we're now talking about insurance, and depending on your niche, even if you're a tech reviewer or a product reviewer of any kind, there's the case of MKBHD talking about this, I think, Rabbit AI tool or whatnot.
Yes, that was what I was hinting at. I didn't want to call him out, but yes, that was what I was talking about.
And his honest review, truthful review, may or may not have tanked the product. There was also many other reviews. He's just, by and large, the largest creator probably speaking on it. So that speaks into if depending on the size of your channel. And that's, I think some creators might be thinking about that. They're like, well, I'm not MKB PhD. I'm not CoffeeZilla. They have the same CoffeeZilla niche, let's say, they're reacting, calling out scams, or they're doing
Mhm.
something like that.
Mhm.
Or they have a tech channel, or they're doing some other product reviews, health products, other things. You want to be thinking about some right insurances, including defamation, again, at almost any size of channel.
I think so. I mean, you know, I think there are channels out there that probably don't have to worry about it, right? Like I could imagine there's some drawing channels or like bullet journal, like very kind of neutral things. I feel like are fine. I don't tell everybody to get media insurance. I really have to kind of look at their content and their channel. And I think the advantage of also being a creator myself is I understand this business really well. Um, and it reminds me, I need to tell you my Taylor Swift story in a little bit. I had a client come to me wanting to do a Taylor Swift thing, so maybe we can loop back
I'll
to it.
circle back. I made a note.
But yeah, but I think there are certainly channels that don't need it. I think you need general liability because general liability is just, and it's cheap. General liability is maybe $1,000 a month. I mean, a year, like depending on what state you're in, but it's very easy for most creators to have that. Media insurance, I think, gets to be a little more. Maybe it's a couple thousand. And so, but if you rise to the level where you are giving reviews on products or talking about other people, then really think about it. I bet you most of the bigger channels out there have it, but it's sort of a case by case, right? Like if you could be a small channel. I mean, I have clients who have like 100,000 or 200,000, but they're making six or seven figures a year doing other stuff. They have courses, they have products, like depending on what size your business is, because the bigger you get, you just have a target on your back, right? Like people, you're going to upset people, there might be people in your audience who don't like what you say or what you do or what you stand for, any of that stuff. And they can come after you to try to cancel you or sue you.
And so just landing the plane on this conversation related to CoffeeZilla, it's actually surprising to me. I totally understand how his broker didn't just fail. His broker terribly failed, because defamation insurance or media insurance would be like the most important thing, knowing CoffeeZilla's work. If he had the right insurance, then the insurance would cover the 6 to 7 figures, the potentially $1 million in legal fees that is going to happen in this situation. Right. Insurance would cover it. And
well, there's always an asterisk, right? Insurance tries to not cover, like that's literally their business model, right? But if they do a evaluation and CoffeeZilla didn't do anything terribly egregious or grossly negligent on his part, right, where he like maliciously knew what he was saying was wrong, right? Like that's one of the elements that they have to prove with defamation, was like, did he maliciously say untruths about Logan Paul, which I don't think is there. Then they would have to cover it. Now, there might be a deductible, like could there be a $50,000 deductible or something, like, before they will start covering, or 100,000, I don't know. Like every policy is so different, but because I used to work at Disney and Skydance and BuzzFeed, I've had to review very, very big policies for media insurance. And so I kind of understand the scope of it. He has a claim against his broker. I think he's suing him. I think CoffeeZilla said in one of his videos, like he has a smaller channel right now called VoidZilla. And so I think he talked about how he's suing his broker.
And rightly so, because again, if you pay a $50,000 deductible, but for $1 million of legal fees, like you're going to be pumped to do that all day long. And I did see him launch merch to help his community rally. And in this situation, I think this is sometimes what might frustrate listeners and the public in general, is that when you're a giant, if you're Logan Paul or you're Mr. Beast, you have so much money and so much legal behind you, even if, right. And you're the expert, but even noticing how meticulous and scrupulous CoffeeZilla is and what he does or doesn't say and how he says it, like to your point, even if the end result is his innocence and his freedom from it, he was drugged through potentially $1 million of cost in the process, simply because of the opponent he's up against in this case. Correct? And so that's sort of maybe the fear out there, and the reason for the insurance, because you maybe would be shocked that some tech company gets upset because your product review went viral. And even though if you are still vindicated, ultimately you could face a lot of expense in the middle should this happen. Am I tracking?
Oh, totally. I mean, and it's sort of the reason why I left Hollywood to come protect creators, because big companies, big celebrities with deep pockets will always usually win because they will just drown you in legal fees, right?
Hmm.
And I've had clients who were completely innocent, right? Like I the facts weren't even remotely there, but they had to pay $100,000 in legal fees just to get out and file for bankruptcy, right? Like that was actually the real reason they got out, was because they filed for bankruptcy, and so to show the court that there was nothing left to get. And those types of cases and clients break my heart. And it's why I'm such a strong advocate to getting kind of these really kind of minor, when you think about it, right? I know for most creators are cost sensitive, like 1,000 or 2,000, they're like, whoa. But like it's just the in case, right? Like in case it goes wrong, are you
Hmm.
willing to have $600,000 or six or seven figures of legal fees? I mean, I told a client this week who's launching a big product, I said, you better put a legal fund aside because we're going to get sued. But it's okay, right? Because if you're doing big business, you're going to get sued. I used to work at a private equity fund, and we used to get sued a lot. And I would get stressed out because I was a head attorney. And my boss was like, why are you so stressed? And I said, because we have like 7 or 8 open litigations against us. And he would say, well, if you're not getting sued, then you're not doing big business. And I think Jimmy is showing us that right now, right? He's a $700 million corporation and he's getting sued left and right.
That's a whole nother mindset. If you're not getting sued, you're not doing big business. Before we move on, just going a little bit deeper in defamation, let's
Mm-hmm.
flip it. I
Okay.
know, and I've talked to in different masterminds of business groups that I'm in, that what if you're in the position of a former employee, or we've seen in different organizations, I think they said it was amicable. I don't think there was any legal things between, say, Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens.
Mm-hmm.
But we've seen where maybe like a talent leaves or something. What if a former employee like makes a video or makes statements with lies and half truths
Mm-hmm.
about the company that they worked for? What would your advice be in regards to defamation or just ignoring it and moving on? I heard you say that Mr. Beast in your video will probably release a statement. To my knowledge, he has not yet. And I just wonder, and some people go, Mr. Beast's downfall is here because Dogpack has gotten maybe over 20 million views, if not more now. But compared to Mr. Beast's influence, you're like, yeah, that's a lot. And it is crazy. And among some circles, it's like, no, yeah, millions of people could be, Mr. Beast is exposed. Like his true colors are out there. Perhaps like maybe that's what we're seeing. But then when we think about the scale he's at, could he just ignore this? And so that's one case study, but maybe for the different size of a media company or something, you have like maybe a former employee make a YouTube video, which anybody can do now. Lots of BuzzFeed people did,
Mm-hmm.
with lies and half truths. What would you maybe follow up with on that, or advice regarding defamation?
Wow, this is a great question. I actually was writing a LinkedIn post about this. I have this great saying that I like to say, if I do my job properly, you guys will never hear about this. So I do a lot of PR crisis management for YouTubers. This year, I've worked on 2 big ones, and you guys never heard about it because I tell my clients, no comment is an okay answer.
Hmm.
Now, most creators are like, oh my God, I have to make a video. I have to respond. I have to tell my side of the story. But here's the thing, YouTube has a very short memory. They're like guppies, right? Like, as you can see with Logan Paul, I mean, how many times has Logan Paul been canceled? But he just keeps coming back like a zombie that cannot be killed, right?
That's
Like
true.
he just keeps coming back. And I said in my video, I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't say anything. It's really dependent on his team, right? His legal team and his PR team. I think the reason why he didn't come out with a statement was probably they knew this class action or some lawsuit was coming. And once you're in the crosshairs of litigation, you shouldn't say anything because anything you say can get used in a court of law, right? So I would say to go back to your question, right, about well, what if an employee does this? And so there are two paths. Like you can go after the employee, send a cease and desist, like Jimmy did with Dogpack. They can ignore it and then just keep doing it. And then your other alternative is to sue him, right? But I said in a short video, I said, Jimmy will not sue him. Because you know why? Because Discovery releases information on both sides. Like, imagine the emails that are in Mr. Beast's company, the things that they have said, the things that they have done, all of that will get exposed as dirty laundry. So he's not going to sue Dogpack because he doesn't want that to come out. He's going to just leave it alone. He's going to hope it dies down. It was starting to die down until this class action came up, right? And I have a hot take on that class action, actually. But I think it'll die down again. I think people just always latch on to some big news. Some other creator is going to, do something terrible. They're going to come out with some terrible apology video. Something else is going to take their attention away. And this is the case in Hollywood as well. I mean, you look at Blake Lively kind of getting canceled. She hasn't come out and given a response. When I worked in Hollywood, it was always no comment. We just don't respond and we just move on. And that's what I believe will happen here. So if I was, I guess, advising a company that was dealing with kind of the same situation, and by the way, my big creator clients are companies, right? Right after the whole thing with Dogpack, I had a big client who was exiting an employee, and they said, "Well, we need a severance agreement and a waiver of all claims," which is what I wanted in place. And in that agreement, in the non-disparagement provision, I made sure to add the word video. It wasn't there before, but I added there because now I'm thinking, wow, all these ex-employees who leave YouTubers, like, they're all going to do what Dogpack is doing. So I tell my clients this: do good business, treat people well. Like, don't do stupid things. If you don't want it to get out in the public and be sued one day, then just be a good person. That's really my advice to my clients. Did that answer your question?
It did. And in summary, it might be like, one, if there is a kind of a transition, consider the exit in regards to severance, disparagement, those details. Previous to that, do good business, take care of people. Of course, realizing that even if you do that, people can do shady stuff on the side, or
Sure.
and so you're doing your best, and then, but with that, of course, have a healthy company culture. And it seems like a lot of light was shined inside of Mr. Beast's business, allegedly, that might not have been
Nice.
A super healthy culture over there in certain aspects. But then also, lastly, that no comment is also perhaps the way to lean, especially maybe in smaller situations. I heard a guy named Alex Hermosi also talk about that as you're growing and you have a target on your back, that there's going to be people making videos about you or making different things. And he said he responds, if they're smaller, he's not going to talk. He's not going to respond, because I mean, it would be outrageous for Mr. Beast to also make a video. He would shine so much light on Dogpack, an incredible amount. Like, so Dogpack got 20 million views or more. If Mr. Beast made a video, that would be 200 million, and the whole algorithm would spin it up. So no comment might be the best policy.
Yes, I totally agree.
This episode is brought to you by StreamYard. StreamYard is our go-to platform here at Think Media for live streaming to Facebook and YouTube, and for recording our video podcast. It has an incredibly easy to use interface for built-in branding, transitions, text lower thirds, and seamlessly bringing on guests. And they just added an awesome new feature called local recording. This allows you to take the quality to another level by separating out your audio and video from your guests, giving you more control over your content for later use. This feature is perfect for video and podcast creators. And so to get a special deal on StreamYard right now and to see all the features that are included, just go to streamwiththink.com. That is streamwiththink.com.
You have a hot take. There is a class action lawsuit from some individuals that were part of the Mr. Beast games, which is an Amazon production at that level with a multi-million-dollar prize, and it's a huge project. And there's already so much smoke around Mr. Beast regarding Ava Chris Tyson and Dog Pack. And now this, what's your hot take?
So, I even had the hook to my YouTube video. It was going to be like, is this the end of Mr. Beast? And I was going to say, yes, maybe. Yes, right? But after reading the complaint, I'm not so sure. And I am the only, I think I'm the only YouTube attorney who can sort of make this conclusion, because I've worked in Hollywood for 16 years. I've been the lead attorney on 22 feature films, many TV shows. When we put an actor or a crew member under contract, we don't call them employees. They are independent contractors. There's no world where they are an employee of the studio, right? Or the network. So for these plaintiffs to claim that they are employees and therefore they're allowed to do this class action, because the reason why they're doing employment claims is because they want this class action. But I don't think it's there. I really don't think it's there. And I was shocked. I was reading the complaint actually last night and I was like, darn it, because there goes my video, because I was going to have some very outrageous, oh my God, he's going to really be taken down with this huge class action. But I don't know. And again, this is my opinion, but we don't know how it's going to pan out. But there might be a situation where this gets thrown out or it gets settled somehow. It probably will get settled. At the end of the day, 90% of cases never go to trial. They always get settled. Mr. Beast is going to throw a lot of money at this, and it's going to, or Amazon, actually. Amazon, I believe, is probably more responsible here. Do you remember the story, when Netflix and Amazon were both courting Mr. Beast, wanting him to do a show with them? And the reason why Amazon won was because they agreed to give him free reign, 100% creative and production control. Netflix was like, no, we need to be, in charge. I'm sure Netflix is patting themselves on the back right now. But Amazon gave him too much free reign. And the biggest question I had was, why was a lawsuit even filed? Do you know that in most production agreements for studios, there's a mandatory arbitration provision in there? So it makes me think this was Mr. Beast's production contract and not Amazon's. So a lot of people fell asleep at the wheel here when they were putting this together. I think they thought, oh, this is going to be like one of Mr. Beast's videos, and we're gonna function and go at it with those, processes in place. But when you have 1,000 or 2,000 contestants, and this is a $5 million, prize, $100 million budget, you can't think in the same way.
Yeah, it does seem like the scale of what is allegedly been described as working at Mr. Beast, that's friends and family at mid-leadership levels and a little bit of chaos, that they went to a scale with that really broke down so people aren't getting water or tampons or the things that they need. And as much as people also want to vilify Mr. Beast, I do think he's going crazy fast. But, his intent, I'm not thinking is for this to happen, but you're at a scale that just broke down.
Yes.
Saying that, I just want to clarify, you said mandatory arbitration would have been in there, hoping to just follow and define terms. So it also seems crazy at his level. That it also speaks to he was maybe punching even above his weight class, which is a pretty big weight class, to, if it was a Mr. Beast production, to be missing that. What does that mean? And who would you hold responsible on his team for being like, how could that not have even been in there with the contracts these contestants were signing?
Now, I will put a disclaimer that I haven't seen those contracts, right? So this is just a guess. Now, maybe there was an arbitration provision, but my guess is there wasn't. And most studios and networks and just companies in general will have an arbitration provision because they don't want cases to go to trial. Because you don't want a Johnny Depp, Amber Heard situation where you get $10 million in punitive damages, because juries can award those. An arbitrator will not, right? An arbitrator is usually a retired judge who thinks very evenly and neutrally. But when you put a case in front of like just lay people, they're like, yeah, we want to give, him like $10 million because he suffered at her, Johnny and Amber, her hands. Here, two things could have happened. One, there was no arbitration provision, or maybe there was one and they just ignored it anyway. So the next thing that will happen will be very interesting, right? Like what's going to be filed by Mr. Beast's team? Is it a motion to dismiss? Is it an answer, right? Is it a motion to move it to arbitration? Like we'll see in the next few weeks, like what's going to happen, because he does have to reply to this soon. I think, maybe it's 90 days, maybe it's 60 days. It is in California, so that's what's interesting. There's a part of me that was like, I would love for this to go to trial. I want to go, like, I'll go and like, because I'm in California, I probably in LA, I would go watch it, but there's a lot of question marks here as to what's going to happen. I think, arbitration provisions tend to help the companies. So when I am on the creator side, I tend to take those out, right? I tend to want the trials. I tend to want the jury trials because the Davids of the world have a better time in court. The Goliaths of the world really want it to be sealed in front of an arbitrator.
Okay, let's touch on copyright and fair use. One quick question. If someone's channel gets demonetized, do you have any advice for trying to get remonetized quickly if you feel like it's been unfair for the reason that the channel got demonetized?
Well, so this just happened to one of my clients a few weeks ago. And do you want to hear the details of what happened? So
100%.
my client is a kind of very up and coming painting channel. I think they're about to hit 100,000 on YouTube soon. But they really got their start on Instagram, and they always put their content up on Instagram first. This is where they tripped up. They wait a month or two before they put it on YouTube. I tell everybody, if you're going to cross post, do it immediately, right? Because what happens is these bad actors, these thieves took their videos and put it on YouTube first. YouTube doesn't care. YouTube only cares like who puts it up first. And then, and then their system's like, okay, that's the IP holder. So anybody else who puts it up after is the thief. So my client, they like went off.
So to be clear, so they're an up and coming painting channel. They were crushing on Instagram with vertical videos.
Yes.
And wanting to also do YouTube shorts.
Right.
But there was a delay. So they're just stacking their growth on Instagram, and bad actors download their content and start uploading it on YouTube. And YouTube favors whoever does it first, assuming the first person to upload it on their platform, which they probably have an isolated perspective. They're not scanning what's happening on Instagram and Meta. And so now they think that whoever uploaded it first and the copyright system would work to then scan when somebody else does it, that's the person that is actually pirating the content or re-uploading it, when in fact, these bad actors just beat the upload of someone else's content to the platform. Am I tracking the story?
Exactly.
Okay, back to you.
Okay. So then they went camping, came back to this email from YouTube, and it had already been like, there was a deadline. There was like, I think a 3-week deadline that they had to respond to this, to the demonetization. So they had already lost half the time. They called me, panicked. And so the process went that we had to appeal this. We had to make a video. And then we had to fill out all these things, right? So I actually drafted a script for them to make the appeals video. And we started filling out all the kind of information they needed, right, to support their case. Now, I very recently met someone that works at YouTube, and I just asked him, like, hey, this is happening. Could you point me to the right person, that we could talk to, or we could send this video to? Like, I was just asking to see if we can like kind of, speed up the process because we were going to miss the deadline soon. And he very graciously, and I explained, I said, this is my client's content. Like, you can see, this is his face. It is my client's content. Like, there was really very little to dispute here, right? Other than the fact that he uploaded too late. And The guy at YouTube, the executive, was very kind, and he sent it to his team, and his team was like, okay, and they just turned on the monetization. Now, maybe that's like cheating a little bit. I wasn't expecting him to do that, by the way. I just was asking him to point me to the right person. So I didn't see it play out, right? I didn't see the whole process play out. But I think what this case study shows is if you can show that it's your content, right? That's you own IP. You're clearly not stealing someone else's IP, because I think that's one of the biggest reasons why YouTube demonetizes, right? Is if they think you're stealing someone's content. So if you can show, for any other, creator out there who, doesn't maybe reach out to me or like, has to do it on their own, I think you have a pretty good chance of showing it. Now, if you stole someone else's content, like that's where it gets hairy, right? That's just why I say don't steal people's content, because I have had clients, like I have one right now. He got his channels deleted, and it was because he took music from a very famous, game, and now we're having to go back to Sony and ask them if they will take away the strikes. So that's a long process, right? That I'm kind of in the middle of right now. Don't get to the point where you get 3 strikes, right? And it's not resolved, because it can be heartbreaking. I'm sure so many people have lost their channels, and it's like big channels, and they can't get it back.
And for listeners, to be clear, if you get 3 copyright strikes, now your channel is in the crosshairs for termination, oftentimes 7 days later after that 3rd strike. This kind of gets into this crazy world of fair use. Mm-hmm. We use a term encouraging people that we're living in a world where it's pretty wild that people are making careers with OPC, other people's content. Not OPP, naughty by nature. That's something different, but OPC, other people's content. And to thousands, tens of thousands of creators are making incredible amounts of money per year talking about The Lord of the Rings on Amazon Prime or Severance on Apple TV, and using clips and photos, movie review channels. And then people also political commentary, taking news clips, reacting to presidential debates. It goes on. And I think it's always a light bulb moment, even for your average creator, that they're out here trying to make talking head videos, come up with original content, and struggle for views and sometimes feels unfair. And there's a lot of criticism people will get. I think Sniper Wolf has been incredibly criticized for creating lazy content.
Yes.
Even copying other React channels, allegedly, for, ultimately not just doing React, like there's reaction content, and there's like levels of how lazy it could be. But let's kind of go at a high level. In your definition, when someone says, what is fair use content? What does that mean? And why does that apply to YouTube? If we work through this for listeners that are new to this whole world, what is fair use content?
I'm happy to explain it. Since you brought up Sniper Wolf, I mean, that's something that's very, not her, but the situation is very dear and near to my heart, because I represent Jax Films and I also represent Azzyland, and they're a common enemy, right? Mm-hmm. And I really don't like people who steal people's content, because it's work that they have done. I mean, creators
Can you backtrack and give the context, because listeners might not know what we're talking about.
So Sniper Wolf, has been kind of notorious for taking videos from TikTok. And what really kind of made people upset with her was that she would take people's handles off. Like, not only was she stealing people's content, she was like not giving them credit. And so just like thousands upon thousands of small creators just weren't getting the credit. Like, she was just making these videos with millions of views, making money off of their work, basically. And she would claim, or, reaction videos would claim, well, this is fair use, right? Because I'm transforming it. But she's not really transforming it. That's one of the elements of fair use, where you have to transform it. Like saying, ew, gross, that's not transforming a video, right? Like really transforming a video is something different. or doing a critique on it, like a film critic, right? So Jack's Films created a second channel called Jack's Films. And so his goal was to take her videos and basically call her out, on her actions, and then give credit to all the creators that she wasn't getting credit for. So Jack kind of rose as this like almost Robin Hood-esque like hero, saving, those because he has a bigger channel. He could highlight the injustice that was happening. Last year in October, I guess, it's been like a year now, Sniper Wolf decided to show up at Jack's home and live stream the front of his house to her 5 million Instagram followers. And this terrified Jack and his wife. I immediately hopped on this. I made a video about this, about how wrong it was. And this was right when I started my law firm last year. And I just very kind of I did not expect anything to happen, by the way. I said, Jack, if you need help, I would love to support you. And that night, he wrote me an email and said, well, if you need me, I know you probably think this is a scam, but I could verify myself. So I think in one of his videos, still in the description, if you look at the very bottom, it has the word Yeti, which is my dog's name. Cause I was like, go ahead and put Yeti, show me it's you. And it really was him. And so I helped him for several months. I can't really go into the details of what happened there, but let it be known that that is not okay. What we do here in video on the internet should stay there. It should never show up in real life. I mean, it was really incredibly terrifying for them that she showed up at their house. And then for months and months after, because people figured out his address, they would be sending him packages. I mean, they would get hundreds of packages and they would never open it because they're terrified. Are these from her fans? So it was really a terrible situation.
And so and the internet term is doxing, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's doxing.
Yeah. So if and this gets into kind of bullying or harassment, which we could circle back to, but this kind of a case study of what you're saying is when it comes to fair use, Sniper Wolf was not transforming or really adding critique. There's a difference between transforming, adding critique, or just reacting. There's levels to it.
Right.
So let's go high level again, though. What is fair use and how do you do it the right way? In fact, Tyler in our community said, yeah, what do you do if you know your content falls under fair use but has a claim against it? That's maybe two different questions. So let me hit you with that in a second.
Okay.
What is good fair use that creators could lead into leveraging other people's content appropriately to avoid potential legal issues?
I will say that this area is very tricky. If you go just by pure law, it's actually very hard to, be protected by fair use, let's say. Now, historically, film critics, they can usually without the ire or the scrutiny of the studios telling them no, they could very easily show clips from a movie and then talk about it, right? Because that's one of the elements of fair use. You can be a critic and give your opinion as to how is this film, right? So you can use the clips from it.
So there's kind of history and context, even pre-social media for film critics. And that's a huge niche on YouTube. If we go a little bit deeper on that, what about news? Because pre-YouTube, news would have pulling clips from public places to talk about it because they're commentating on that. And news has a huge opportunity on YouTube to start a news channel. Is it the same? There's historical context, but can I just, download the debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris and then just react to it and chop it up? Fair use.
It always depends on, what is the position of the studios or the networks, right? If they want to come after you, they can. I mean, at the end of the day, they own the IP. If they don't like what you're doing, they can take it down. Now, just from a pure logistics standpoint, when I was at Disney, we rarely actively went after violators because the sheer volume of IP violators would be in the billions. So It's usually when someone would bring it to us and they would say, this is very egregious, or this is making you look really bad. You guys should go after them. So it's really there's that consideration. But also, when I tell clients who are creators who want to use clips, I say 2 to 3 seconds. It's not bulletproof, but I really think like if you keep it less than 5 seconds,
That's so short.
it's very
And you just
short.
mean I mean, what if you want to react to a whole 30-second to 60 seconds of audio as well?
Again, it really depends on the IP holder, right? Like the IP holder can come after you and say no. They can do a strike, they can do a claim, right? Kind of to your question. But a lot of what I'm seeing, and I don't work at a news network. I think a lot of times news networks are not as precious as maybe studios with their films. Studios make money from their films, right? They don't want you to watch it. They wouldn't allow a whole film to be shown on YouTube, right? Because they want you to like go pay for their app or like go in the movie theaters. So it all comes down to like, what's the monetary consideration? For news, it's such a short thing, right? Like if they really want to capture in the first 24 hours, like then they have other content that they're making. So they care a little less, I think news networks do. That's been my experience compared to film and TV. But at the end of the day, what I want creators to realize is whoever content you're using, they own it. They can come and claim it and strike you if they want to. And then you have to like go back and forth with them as to explaining like why you think it's fair use. Sometimes, I've helped clients where this happens. There was a biology channel. They show a lot of like animal videos, and my client used a couple. We went to them because they placed a strike. We went to them and we said, what would you like? This is such an important thing. Like, what do you need? What do you want? Right? This is what I always ask the other side when I'm making a deal. They said, well, I want credit and I want some money. So we ended up paying him a few $100s and he removed the strike. So it's always like, are you using it fairly? Are you giving them credit? You can go get a license. Like that's what some creators do. Like they just go pay for a license and then you're protected, right? Like you won't run into it.
Like a license from who and what example?
Well, so in that example with like the biology channel, right, with the animal clips, like he sells it to people. Like he's like, yeah, you want to use my video? It's $50, or
people
like
take his animal clips for their stuff.
Yes,
and he's like, what I want credit and I want some money, as opposed to
yes.
people just using it without giving me credit or giving me money.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So I would say,
and then that's a written agreement of some kind.
Yes.
In each case,
it's not unlike
a communication for that. How do they reach out to him? And without people, because YouTube now, if I go into the copyright area of YouTube, I see people will download and re-upload Think Media videos. Now, honestly, a lot of times I won't track it down because they'll get like 4 views. So I'm like, okay, it's just sitting out there, sitting over there. There's other times where they'll also take a clip of it. And because I think probably a lot of creators that are really in this probably have a much more liberal mindset towards fair use. You're like, yeah, I mean, you gave 2 minutes of my video, but you put, I mean, whatever. And there's kind of and I would fall into this camp. If I tried to take all the monetization for the hard work someone put into a video, then in my opinion, I'm like, yeah, I'm just like a little clip in it. And they cited that, whatever. I'm not going to try that. The reverse of that oftentimes, I believe, has the negative public opinion of when you only use a few seconds and you make a video essay or a YouTube documentary, and then somebody with a tiny clip says they get the whole thing. You're like, yeah, right, man. Look how much high quality, high effort, how much energy they put into that. But, this is the murky world. Any thoughts on kind of the mindset I'm going through here?
Ask me what the question is. Sorry.
Well, I guess it's just YouTube in the back end is going to show that somebody uploaded this guy's animal clips. How does he follow up to actually get the money and get the credit once maybe the video is already public? How does he even create the communication with which to license the clips of his animal content?
Well, I'm saying to do it proactively, right? Like and my client took several, clips from this biology channel, and I think it was because he did it several times that it kind of like got on the radar of this biology channel. I'm saying before you even use someone's video, go to them and say, hey, I want to use these 5 videos. I'm going to use like 10 seconds each or something. Be very specific. And I'd like to pay you $150. And sometimes people will say yes, right? Because they just want to get paid for their work. Now, some people will say no, right? And they're like, no, you just stole my content. And you can't convince them to take the strike off. That's why if you had done the license beforehand, then you would be protected against this happening. I will say, as sort of not a catch-all, not making you bulletproof, if you like, make sure to credit people. I mean, be a good person about it, right? Like credit people's content that you're using. Sometimes that will be enough to not anger somebody to come after you. But it's not always like that means YouTube doesn't care, right? If you took someone's IP, you took someone's IP. Like you saying, well, I credited them. They don't care. Like YouTube doesn't care, and the IP holder might not care. They just care that you took their content.
I think the last thing on just this category, I love going deep, and you're adding massive value. And if you're listening to this, leave a review. And if you're watching this, the like button helps the YouTube algorithm, and let me know if you want to have Tyler back on. I certainly do, because we're probably 10% through my questions. But 2 questions. There is a massive niche on YouTube called faceless channels and YouTube automation. Are you familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then there's also, maybe I'd say like there's like lazy cash grab faceless channels. And then there's like high quality, I want to call them video essays or YouTube documentaries. So, and these are some of my favorite channels, people covering Diddy right now. Wow. A lot of smoke around that situation. And they're making, they're pulling photos. They're altering the photo, they're animating them. They're pulling clips. They're pulling old clips of Justin Bieber and Diddy talking, and then they're cutting in their commentary. They're writing an entirely original script. They're scoring the music on it. And they're pulling clips from Entertainment Tonight and some niche documentary, and they're downloading a video, and they're uploading, a 32-minute, a 47-minute deep dive. Like you said earlier, we're talking about film commentary. It happens all the time. But now you're talking about someone's likeness, AKA Sean Diddy Combs. And they're, making these videos about it. Now, these channels they're making 10K, 20K, 30K or more a month from YouTube ad revenue. And then eventually they start getting brand deals, and brands are sponsoring these videos. Right. Here's my guess. It's not only my guess. I'm certain in 99% of these cases, they didn't get permission from Entertainment Tonight to use that clip from years ago. That's really the OPC, other people's content type of a thing. But they're trying to hit all the different fair use checklist. Transformative, lots of different sources, not just one. Lots of commentary, nothing of exceptional length of any one source. And also, if it is, it's broken up a little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end. So let's hit that one first. Is that also just somewhat of a risky proposition? And like you said, fair use is also going to take place in the court. It doesn't even take place on YouTube. If someone's doing that, do you have any advice for navigating those waters? If you're trying to make high quality content, but you're not asking, but you are crediting. So whether it's your screen recording and you see the channel, or it says source and it says the channel, and you're really being thoughtful about essentially having your digital bibliography, your digital index of references, and you're making high quality video essays or documentary. Any thoughts on that? And also, if that is maybe lucrative now, but might get more scrutinized later, like if it's risky and shaky ground to be building on, or if you think it's, it's a good YouTube, if you will, business model, and if they're going deep on fair use, a lot of these channels are doing very well. And I think they're doing it right because they're crediting people, but I'm curious your take.
I mean, these are such good questions, John. I think that it is like what I hinted at earlier, right? It's a resources and policing issue for these networks, right? They would need thousands upon thousands of people to sit there and go after these, YouTube channels that are making the clips. But to what end, right? Yeah, like they maybe could get them to take it down, but like I think the resources to police this would be really, really costly. I think at the end of the day, like, because I've been on the studio side, I think the calculation we would take is, well, that's old content, right? Like if we're using this example of Sean Combs, and they're bringing, like people, they give credit. So they're like, oh, it's like, Entertainment Weekly or whatever show, right? I think most of the studios and networks like probably won't go after people who just take little clips here and there. It's the whole movie. It's the whole TV show. It's the replacing them, right? That consideration is not happening here, right? I don't think they're being replaced because this old content. Now, one might argue, and I actually think as we get bigger, and when I say we, I believe YouTube is the new Hollywood. I believe all the content is going to be made over here. It's going to be like, all the studios are trying to figure out how to come into the creator space. I mean, I'm high level advising private equity funds how to come, invest in this space. Everybody's trying to figure out how to be a creator, right? And I actually think with the tidal wave of more content that's going to be made on YouTube, it's going to be even harder for them to police. It might even get a little less risky, right? You were saying about the risk, because imagine how many YouTube channels there's going to be in 5 years or 10 years. I mean, this is my kids' world, right? Like, this is going to be their future. It's how they take in content. I think it's going to be so hard to police. And unless, YouTube's system, but I don't think these networks are going to be feeding old videos. I think the record labels, they can do it very easily. They can feed their music into the algorithm, and they can do automatic, claims, which I have a client who has a big piano channel on YouTube, and he covers a lot of big songs like Coldplay or like Taylor Swift, and he just gets automatic claims, and he doesn't care because he's getting millions of views, so he's okay sharing 30 or 40% with the record label because it's their IP, right? And so unless there's more sophisticated detection, but that requires a manual aspect, right? Like, are the networks going to upload all of their content and so that it can be, matched and content ID with YouTube? I mean, I just feel like that's really onerous, and I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know if I went a lot off track there, but
that's a great answer. And I know we both have a hard stop in a second, and I look forward to a future conversation.
Yes, I would love to come back.
Probably like 4 or 5 future conversations.
Yes,
because we got through like 2 of my questions, and I know we went down many rabbit holes. I'm also would encourage, if you're listening on audio, visit us over on the YouTube channel, and drop your maybe future questions in the comments, because I know this is a big area. And I do have one final question for you, but shout out your stuff. So if anybody wants to connect with you, I want to thank you for, this incredibly insightful convo. But how can people connect with you, follow what you're doing if they need help?
Sure. So you can find me, Tyler Chou, the Creator's Attorney, on YouTube, on Instagram. I am not really on TikTok because I don't really like it. But I'm huge on LinkedIn right now. I really want to ask people, if you're not on LinkedIn, it's such a white space. Like, the numbers are something like 200 million users in the US, but only 100,000 are actively writing consistently. And consistently is just once a month. So I did this 90-day challenge where I wrote every day, and my law firm exploded. Like, I had so many inbounds from CEOs and founders. I mean, 2 of my biggest clients came from LinkedIn. So really think about it. And I write almost every day over there. So if you like the advice or the, information I'm giving here, please follow me there. And also, the news that I want to share is I'm going to be launching a community soon with Mighty Networks, because Sean, I'm becoming too exclusive. Only the biggest creators can work with me right now, and I don't like that. So I wanted to start a community where smaller creators can come in, and I can teach them, everything. But my love is to help creators become businesses. The community is going to be called the 7-figure creator. I believe, the biggest fallacy that most YouTubers have is they tell me, well, YouTube is my business. And I have to tell them, no, YouTube is the marketing arm of your business. You're the business, you're the media company. But a lot of creators don't, that light bulb hasn't gone on for them yet. But I do this for a lot of my big creators. I'm fractional CEO and I help them grow out their businesses so that they can be acquired. I'm currently helping one of my creator YouTubers sell his YouTube channel right now. And we're negotiating with private equity funds. It's going to be in the 8 figures. So if you mature and grow your business and have diverse revenue streams, because that's what the funds really want. Do you have a course? Do you have a newsletter? Do you have, an app? Do you have physical products? Like that's what they want to look at. You can't just have your YouTube channel, because I really think purely relying on AdSense and brand deals is a recipe for burnout. And if I could just say one last thing, like I really think, in thinking about yourself as a business, creators need to have systems in place. Like I didn't put any systems in place the first 6 months. And the last 6 months, I've just been dying and really paying the price for it. And I started, I never had a CRM before. I was like, what's a CRM? And then I got introduced to High Level, which is an amazing product. And 2 of my clients work with them and they make 6 figures in affiliates with them. I was like, what is this? It's replaced like about $1,000 worth of software for me every month. Like I no longer use Calendly or QuickBook or anything. I mean, like DocuSign, that's the huge one because DocuSign is very expensive. So it's replaced several softwares for me. So that's my final advice is think about getting an attorney and put in some systems in your business, because it will help automate things and make it go faster. So you can create content, because that's what creators are good at.
Well, Tyler, briefly with our 1 minute, check out show notes and links in the show notes, Think Media community. And thank you for adding so much value today. In a nutshell, one of the emotions people might be feeling right now is anxiety. Because there's so much opportunity, but it's like, whoa, there's so much stuff I don't know. And I don't want to get sued. And I don't know if I'm set up right. And I don't know like systems. And I want to encourage listeners. That's what we're here for. Tyler and I are here to help you, subscribe, keep learning, keep growing. I'm just curious from your perspective. It sort of can feel like when you look at all this stuff, like, man, I just want to hunker down and like not try. So what do you think the right mindset is, in 30 to 60 seconds of being smart, but like not being afraid when it comes to all of this stuff that could get us distracted and maybe stop us from taking bold action?
Realize that this is the future. YouTube is the future. Traditional media is dying. And if you have the courage to get on camera and put your story out there, millions of people can see it. That's the American dream. I feel like it's so powerful and so beautiful. These are details that, like I say, pay some people to be on your team and take care of these issues for you so that you can keep creating, right? That's how you take the anxiety out of the equation. Just have some good people, by your side helping you on this journey, because you are going to get bigger. If you're consistently uploading and you just press record, as Sean likes to say, like you're going in 5 years, you will be so glad you started your YouTube channel. Right? I'm currently putting a YouTube channel in a trust for my clients' kids. It's going to be more valuable than real estate. So just press record and just go. That's my advice.